Ernst, thank you very much for taking some time off your hectic campaign to promote racism and white supremacy in South Africa. The first, to kickstart our discussion, I just want to know that I think I should ask you about your organization, AfriForum. I mean, in your website, you record that you just want to protect the interest of Afrikaners. So I want to know, do you really care about the 64% black South Africans who are living in poverty and their life is under threat?
Well, firstly, thank you for that very colorful introduction. It's the most interesting introduction I've ever had. So I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. The question is about AfriForum's positioning in terms of Afrikaners. AfriForum is a civil rights organization. We focus to protect the rights of minority communities because we believe the test for a well-functioning democracy is not simply whether there's majority vote, but whether minority rights are protected. So, yes, we do have a particular focus on the rights of Afrikaners, but it's not from an identity perspective, it's from a principle perspective. So it's not true that we are simply or only trying to protect the rights of Afrikaners. Our aim is to ensure that minority communities are also respected.
But in your website, you are very explicit that you've only focused on Afrikaners. Why Afrikaners? Why not other minority groups?
No, well,
why not the Khoi and the San?
That's definitely not on our website.
It is there, Ernst, but nevertheless, let's get to the discussion. I see that your racist agenda suffered a serious blow last week in the Cape Town High Court. You failed to stop Parliament from proceeding with land expropriation without compensation. So what's your next step as AfriForum?
Well, if you would describe that as a serious blow, you were welcome. Actually, all that happened is we approached the court regarding the irregularities in the process to amend the Constitution, and we believe that there's been certain serious irregularities up to now. And we approached the court about this, and all the court said was that this isn't an urgent matter, so it will still be heard in court. The only thing was it's not that urgent, so we're still going to have the matter, but it's just not going to be as soon as we would have liked.
It was indeed a defeat, Ernst, because in the collective wisdom of your lawyers, they thought that they could be urgent. Unfortunately, it was not urgent. But to get to the issue, what are the irregularities that you think happened in the process?
Well, there are many irregularities. One of them is the fact that the written submissions, 65% of the written submissions, which amount to several 100,000 submissions, have stated that they do not support expropriation without compensation. Other irregularities are with the organising of the public hearings, the fact that the purpose of this commission, parliamentary commission, is to determine whether the constitution has to be changed or whether expropriation without compensation has to be done. But while this process is going on, the state president has publicly announced what the outcome of the process would be. So in our view, it's just window dressing at the moment. But there's a long list of irregularities. Those are just three.
Well, the state president is entitled to his views as an ordinary South African, as a president of the republic, and his views will always be tested by the majority of parliament. But to get to the issue, Ernst, why don't you think that you should stop wasting your time in court and we as South Africans start dealing with the problem of skewed land ownership in South Africa, which shows that private ownership of land is about 72% in the hands of whites and only 14% in the hands of blacks. I mean, we should be engaged in a progressive discussion on legislation, which will ensure that once land expropriation without compensation has happened, the land does not stay in the hands of the political elite or those who are connected to the political elite. The land is not given to multinationals or international corporates who will gentrify our people and remove them for commercial purposes.
Well, we'll stop spending as much time in court when the ruling party of which you are a member stops violating our rights. If the question is about skewed patterns of land ownership, I think that's philosophically where we differ. I would assume that me and you would both agree that equality is very important, but I think our definition of equality differs. In the sense that you believe in equality of outcome and we believe in equality of opportunity. So to say that everything must represent the demographics of the country is a way of enforcing equality of outcome.
No, it's not. It's not. It is how, if you can't only be worried about outcomes when the injustice was done through inputs. If it has always been about outcome, it wasn't ever going to be about inputs. So the reality of the matter is that people were dispossessed land through various acts under colonialism and under apartheid. People were dispossessed land through wars of conquest. So it cannot be today that we're only discussing outputs and not the inputs.
Just to clarify, which wars of conquest are you referring to?
There are many wars of conquest where this eNCA and Skokonia fought war, Bambata Rebellion, and many other wars where our people were engaged in wars, and after the wars they took the land. Are you not conversant with the history of South Africa? Maybe that's the problem.
I disagree with the ANC's version of the history of South Africa.
No, give us your version. Did you come with land? Did those who came here in South Africa come with land?
My ancestors came with exactly the same amount of land that your ancestors came with when they crossed the Limpopo River.
No, that's distorted history, Ernst, in which you are just distorting history to favor your version of events. But in reality, we all know and accept as a fact that there were wars of colonial conquest in Africa, and not only land was taken, but land and livestock. And we're just busy now with one process of land expropriation without compensation. We're still going to get to the issues to the other things which were taken with the land. So in my view, Ernst, but this is not the only issue of land expropriation without compensation. If I may ask, why are you so opposed to transformation? Why do you oppose Sasol giving black shareholders? Why are you opposed to Discovery doing the same? Why are you opposed to affirmative action? What informs these hostilities towards affirmative action?
Yeah, well, we are, I guess you could say that we share the view that your party's president in 1994 emphasized that people should not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So we are not in opposition to empowering black people, but we believe enforcing it through state mechanisms, through preferential treatment.
Let's just go to the break, Ernst, and as soon as we come back, we'll take the discussion forward.
Ernst, there are serious racial inequalities which we ought to be dealing with. And we can't ignore the issue of race in South Africa. As things stand today, you have that 67% of managers are white in South Africa. Unemployment largely affects African youth. University participation in South Africa still remains that of the apartheid privileges. So why do you want us to ignore the issue of race?
Well, no, we're not saying that we should ignore the issue of race, but to simply quote figures about top management is also a distortion, because you need to ask the question, if you want to use that measure, you need to ask the question, what is the demographics of people graduating in South Africa? What's the
demographics of course will favor white people, as I said to you. The participation rate, it is because of the participation rate in universities. It is because you are privileged, white people in general are privileged. They have access to universities. When we introduced quotas in the University of Pretoria, AfriForum opposed it. When Stellenbosch tried quotas for entrance, AfriForum opposed it. So that is why the graduation rate will also be skewed.
Don't you think black people are capable enough of competing on an equal level? Do you think it's like Special Olympics for black people?
It's not natural to compete. Black people are more than capable to compete, but we must level the play field. We must have the same infrastructure in the schools as white schools. We must have the same privilege of studying in Africans like you do, which we do not have.
Well, there's many...
And every time there are attempts to introduce African languages, you are the first people to go to court to oppose that.
That's definitely not true. We support the introduction of African languages.
In many instances, you always want to privilege Afrikaans over many languages, including English.
No, that's not true.
It's true. Well, look, Ernst, there are many instances where you've been to the court.
Our entire organization is based on the principle of mother tongue education.
Ernst, you have been, that's what I'm saying to you. You have been to courts on many occasions fighting only for Afrikaans. You have never been to the University of Venda once and said that the mother tongue, the language of teaching and learning should be Venda. You have never been to Zululand and said, we are fighting for the Zulu people around here to say to them, the language of learning and teaching must be isiZulu. Why don't you do that?
Because that would be cultural appropriation. That would be paternalism.
No,
you're saying that we white people must go to black universities.
You are fighting, if your principle is mother tongue, if your principle is mother tongue and you believe in the quality which mother tongue brings, that quality must be universal. You must fight for it everywhere you go.
I agree 100%.
So why are you not doing that?
We would.
You are doing that because you want to privilege Afrikaans.
No, we would.
Because you firmly believe that Afrikaans is a superior language compared to other languages, and if things are not done in Afrikaans, then they ought not to be done.
Will you give me opportunity to answer?
I'm giving you an opportunity to answer, Ernst.
We would gladly support any organization. I'm saying this on air now. We would gladly support any organization that wants to promote mother tongue education and multilingualism. That's the principle, the language principle on which we are based. So if you want us to become involved with a court battle in Venda University, we would do so. We're not going to go there as white people and tell the black...
But you have been to other areas which I commend you. You have been to other areas which I commend you for, where you have assisted learners to fight for education, to have access to decent schooling.
Yes,
why don't you choose the... Yes, that's what I'm saying. You chose black people, you went to them. They didn't invite you.
No, they invited us.
Why don't you go to the vendor community there?
No, they invited us. It's a black community.
So now, tell me, what is generally what is the attitude? What is the attitude of AfriForum towards transformation? Why are you so fundamentally opposed to policies that want to emancipate the majority of black people who live in poverty on a daily basis?
Yeah,
why are you opposed to why are you opposed to economic transformation? Why are you opposed to black people owning shares? Why are you opposed
to black people?
You are fighting.
We're opposed to racial discrimination.
You are fighting Discovery now. You are saying they can't give 10% to black people.
We're not saying that black people shouldn't be allowed to own shares in Discovery. We're saying that there shouldn't be a blacks-only policy.
No, there should be a blacks-only policy. You need to level the playing field. The injustices of the past, of the past can only be corrected if you level the playing field. If you do not level the playing field, these inequalities, just by the way, Ernst, are not a blessing from God. They were men created. They were created by colonialism and apartheid.
Which man created
the many people who were legislators in South Africa in colonialism, and the many people who were legislators in South Africa in under apartheid.
You know, there's been inequality since the agricultural revolution.
Inequality is always there. Ernst, let's take a call, Ernst, and we'll get back to the discussion.
Hello there, good evening, can you hear me?
Hello, Mike.
Yes, hi there, good evening, can you hear me?
I'm good, Mike, and you?
I'm good, thank you very much. My question is this. Well, let's just cut to the chase here. What we have here is an ANC that is in panic mode. They have an election coming up next year. Only about 11 or 12 months ago, Derek Hanekom, ANC MP, said expropriation without compensation would be seriously unjust and do great damage to South Africa. It has done great damage. The rand collapsed the day that Cyril Ramaphosa announced it. We have an ANC that has sold our company out to the Guptas. We only have to hear that from the Zondo Commission. The ANC has lost us 5-6 million jobs in the last 5-6 years, and we are in serious trouble with all our SOEs, and we have power failures as we speak. All the ANC is doing, and I can hear it from the debate tonight, is taking us away from the real issues of this country, playing black against white. And this land expropriation without compensation is an absolute nonsense, and it really is just the race card being played on a massive scale, and it's not going to happen next year because it's not what South Africans want. People want jobs, they want honesty, they don't want the corrupt ANC that we have in power today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much, Mike. Mike, I have to politely differ with you when you say that land expropriation without compensation is not what South Africans want. South Africans have spoken throughout the length and breadth of South Africa that they want land expropriation without compensation. The ANC can never be in panic mode, and I doubt we are in panic mode as the ANC. In fact, we're at our best time. Even surveys continue to support that President Cyril Ramaphosa is extremely popular amongst the electorate, and the ANC is as popular as he is. So in my view is that the ANC is going to win next year's elections. There's no need to panic. We're just addressing inequalities of the past. Hello, Ronaldo, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good.
Thanks, man. Ndumiso, I just wanted to request 2 things from you, and that is just to explain when you started the show by calling everything left, right, and center racist that came from AfriForum side. It's very easy to say the racist policy or AfriForum has this racist tendency, but you don't expand on what that racism means and basically to defend what you had to say. But then, with that being said, the second part, the expropriation without compensation. Unfortunately, the ANC failed miserably with land reform 5 years ago, as that was their promise to the people for the 2014 elections. And because they couldn't continue with that and go on with that, what they decided was to go on with the EFF and now do land expropriation without compensation. So, yeah, the ANC, unfortunately, I disagree with you. They're not in a good place right now. There's internal battles, and all we need to look at is Batlamini Dlamini, and the fact that she's still there, it shows that there's still a faction within the ANC. And unfortunately, the ANC is going to learn the hard way this election what's going to take place, and that is being brought under 60% for the first time in history.
No, thank you very much, Ronald. Ronald, I don't think you are accurate when you say that the ANC failed dismally on land reform in the past 5 years and not to give the context of what happened. The truth of the matter is that whenever we attempted to take land or to negotiate with white landowners, there was an issue of a high cost which they claimed all the time. Up until we attempted to introduce the surveyor, general. The second issue which you must get to is to say that every time there was these issues, there were also issues of courts. So we can't run away from that, and that delayed the process of land transformation. That is why now we are saying we want the Constitution of South Africa to be explicit and say that it is permissible to expropriate land without compensation, and such that the land will go to its rightful owners, the indigenous people of South Africa.
Says the ANC was in power since 1994. Today, in 2018, they want to debate the issue of land. It is very much obvious that it was not for EFF to push the issue of land. No other party was prepared to do so. Tsepo Kumo says, AfriForum debating expropriation without compensation with a party that doesn't believe in it is a waste of time. I won't be wasting my time watching it. Give it to EFF to debate with AfriForum. I think we all know that those things are not true. Land expropriation without compensation is a policy of the ANC Youth League, which it adopted in its 2011 national conference in Galaga Estate. Ernst, let's continue with the discussion on economic transformation. How do you think South Africa should resolve the myriad of problems and challenges that continue to confront it? What do you think must be done to change the reality that the majority of South Africans still live in poverty? How do we change the reality that the majority of unemployed graduates are still black? How do we change the reality that majority of our people still sit in the township and watch the sun rise and set, and majority of those people are Africans?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is we need to realize that the problem that we need to solve is the problem of poverty and unemployment. And to do so, there's a lot of things that we can say, and I think the problem is that government and political parties are trying to promote quick fixes. The only sustainable solution is really two things: to fix the education system. We know 80% of schools in this country are dysfunctional, of which the majority are black schools, and it's not necessarily the current problems in black schools have little to nothing to do with white oppression, and I can elaborate on that if you want. So fixing the education system, particularly for black children, and combined with that having economic policy and labor policy that makes it easier for people to start businesses and to employ people. And that would include, for example, re-looking this push for a higher minimum wage, because that has an impact. It increases unemployment, and it would include deregulation of the labor market to make it easier for people to start businesses.
Let's take Edwin from Cape Town. Good evening, Edwin.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Good, and you?
That's good, man. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, I would like to say thank you for the discussion, but I'd like to say, Ndumiso, as the host, I don't understand why you're defending the ANC, because as we know, all over South Africa, the ANC are failing us as much as a government that is not looking after their people as the previous government. So from that part, I'll first say, stop defending my brother. There's very little to defend. Ernst, I would like to say that in order for us to move forward, we need to take away that privilege that you are portraying all over these TV screens. We are tired of seeing white privilege dominating all areas of society, specifically the economic system, like Ndumiso named the demographics earlier. White people need to sit back and allow people of color to start running the country that they own. We want the land. There is no such thing as we do not want the land. Our people have spoken. We are tired of white people telling us how to run South Africa. You took most of the land that you own by force. We are taking it with legislation. You should say thank you that we are allowing white people to live the way we live in peace. Because if you continue fighting us and you continue doing what you're doing now, the end of all of this will be that civil war that we tried to avoid under Nelson Mandela. So both of you have a lot to do, which is to bring forth transformation. One, by the ANC changing all that corrupt agents out of their past, and the white AfriForum need to change their views, relinquish their privilege, and work with us towards giving back what has been taken from us legally, or illegally, not legally. Thank you, guys.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you very much, Edwin.
Yes, you can ask me a question.
I just want to respond to your question. Can you used the term white privilege. Can you just define it for me?
Well, I will define it.
Edwin.
Let me define it.
Edwin, thank you very much, Edwin. I think it's time for other callers, but Ernst must always like to blackmail us with semantics of defining terms. I've defined the term for you before, but can you continue? But can you answer Edwin's question?
It's hard for me to respond to a question if I don't know what he means. So I can respond to some aspects of it. The parts
to
that
some
I
aspects,
understood.
and I'll come to the issue of
Okay, so he made the comment that I think he said something like all the land owned by white people was taken by force, or the majority of it. That's just not true.
What are the truths, Ernst? Because you have your own version of truth.
No, we don't have our own version.
In AfriForum.
Our version is based on historical accounts of white and black people.
So you are the only one who have this correct historical account?
Well, it seems like it, unfortunately.
No, Ernst. You are just using privilege. You've heard the story of says that until the hunters start writing their own stories, the lions will continue to write stories. That's what you are telling us, that you are doing to us.
What?
You come here to South Africa, you take our land. After that, you want to tell us how to record that history. You want to tell us how to remember how you took that land.
No, I'm not telling you.
That's basically what you are doing, Ernst.
Not to fabricate.
But let's get to the issue. Ernst. The education system in South Africa indeed does have challenges, and majority of it are legacy problems. Do you agree with that?
Not currently, no.
Well, why not? Why not currently?
Because I can tell you what the problems are with the education system today.
But there are serious problems of access to schools. We've been, in the past 20 years, been engaged in a program of eradicating mud schools. And I come from a township where the apartheid government built a beer hall owned by government before there was a high school. How do you account? That's a legacy issue, and you can't run away from that.
It's very ironic that you use that example, because I literally, I think the last time I spoke at an event like this, a young black woman, black entrepreneur came to me afterwards who complained to me about the fact that she's trying to build an educational facility in a township near, I think it was Mokopane, I can't remember the town, and the local community opposed the idea because they wanted to build a beer hall, which is exactly what you're referring to now. So there's a lot of internal issues that need to be dealt with, including, in terms of the education crisis, including mismanagement by headmasters, including teacher absenteeism.
Let's go towards the end. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
End of the answer.
It has been a very short 30 minutes, and that's it for this edition of Let's Have It Out. Keep the conversation going on social media. You can use the hashtag LHIO. I'm Ndumiso Mokako, and thank you very much for watching. Good night. Thank you, Ernst.
Thank you very much.